This video is the final part in a 4-part series on order of operations. By the end of this video, you will have a very good understanding of the following question. How do I evaluate a numerical expression using the order of operations? So one more time, we're going to review these order of operations. The first thing, and the new part that we're adding to our order of operations problems today would be parentheses or grouping symbols, and those would be any sort of parentheses or brackets. And in this step, it's where you have to do any operations, so any addition or subtraction or multiplication or division that's found inside the parentheses or brackets. Once our parentheses are completed, we have to look for any exponents. The third step is to multiply and divide from left to right, which means you have to do whatever comes first in the problem. And then you finish up with any addition and subtraction from left to right, where again you have to do whatever comes first. So here we have some examples that I'll work through with you. You'll notice that we have some parentheses. The first parentheses has a 4 in it. There's nothing to do inside those parentheses. We have a second set of parentheses right here with a 9 minus 7. That has something inside that we can calculate. So I'm going to rewrite what I have in this problem up through those parentheses. And I'm going to calculate 9 minus 7, and I'm going to make that a 2. Okay, so again, I'm going to rewrite my order of operations here just as a reminder. Parentheses are first, followed by exponents. Then we're going to, we're going to multiply and divide from left to right. And lastly, we're going to finish up with any addition and subtraction from left to right. So we've already completed that parentheses step. Okay, there's nothing left to do now inside the parentheses. So now we move on to exponents. And we look for anything that has an exponent on it. In this case, the 4 is being squared. So I'm going to put a box around that to remind myself that that's the calculation I need to do next. Everything else is going to get written down. So I'm going to write down my 5 minus 3. And I'm going to calculate 4 to the second power. In the last video, we talked about how to enter that in your calculator. Or you can think of it as 4 times 4. Either way, you're going to get a 16. And I'm going to write down the rest of my problem. So I've completed my parentheses. I've completed my exponent step. Now I'm looking for any multiplication and division. In this case, it looks like we only have multiplication, and there's 2 parts that show multiplication, the 3 times 16 and the 8 times 2. So I'm going to bring my 5 and my minus sign down. And now I have to figure out what 3 times 16 is. So on your calculator, you can multiply 3 times 16 on the side of your paper, however you want to do that. You're going to get a 48. And I have this plus sign that I have to bring down. And then I also have to calculate 8 times 2, which is 16. Now, since we have some bigger numbers, I'm absolutely okay with you using your calculator, all right? But I still want you to show me either step by step, left to right, one at a time, or where you're putting your good guys together, bad guys together, and then getting a final answer. Okay, so I'm going to look at good guys and bad guys here. I have a positive 5. I have a negative 48. And I have a positive 16. So if I look at my good guys, I have a 5 and a 16. Well, that's 21. And my bad guys are 48, so a minus 48. So on your calculator, if you type in 21 minus 48, you're going to get negative 27 as your final answer. Okay? So even though the problem does look more complicated than the problems we've done on the previous videos, if you go step by step, hopefully it's not going to be too confusing. Okay, but again, don't try to bite off more than you can chew, and don't try to do more than what you can in one step. All right, next example. In this one, again, we're starting with our parentheses step. We have an 8 minus 3 in parentheses here. We also have parentheses down here, but there's nothing to do inside of them. Those parentheses simply mean that we're multiplying those numbers together. So I'm not going to do anything with that in the first step. So I have my negative 6. 8 minus 3 is 5. So I've calculated what's inside those parentheses. And now I'm just going to write down what is in the rest of my problem. Okay, so that's my first step. That's parentheses. Second step says we're looking for exponents. Well, we have one exponent here, and that's this 5 squared. So again, I'm going to write down my negative 6. My 5 squared is the same as 5 times 5. That's going to be a 25. And again, I'm going to write down the rest of my problem because I'm not ready to do those steps yet. All right. So now we've done parentheses. We've completed our exponent step. Now the multiply and divide step. So I'm going to put my triangle here just as a reminder. Okay, we have to multiply negative 6 times 25. Well, a negative times a positive is going to be a negative. Okay, so we're going to do this multiplication here. And then we're going to do this division here. And those are the two things I'm going to do in this step. Okay, now we already know our answer for negative 6 times 25 is going to be negative. I like multiplying by 25 because I can think of it in terms of quarters. If you have 6 quarters, you have $1.50. Okay, so 6 times 25 is 150. And if we just figured out that it's going to be negative, it's negative 150. I'm going to bring down my plus sign. I have a 12 divided by negative 3. Again, I'm doing a positive divided by a negative. So my answer is going to be a negative 4 in this case. I have parentheses with a negative 2, which means I'm multiplying by a negative 2. And then I have my minus 4 at the end. So now I still have multiplication to do, it looks like. Okay, so I can't move on to the next step until I get this multiplication taken care of. So I'm going to write down my negative 150 plus a negative times a negative. A negative times a negative is going to end up giving us a positive. In this case, it's a positive 8. I'm going to bring down my minus 4. So now I'm in my add and subtract step. That's all I have left. So from left to right, this time I will work this problem out. So negative 150 plus 8. If I have 150 bad guys and 8 good guys, that's going to bring me down to a negative 142 or 142 bad guys. And then I have this minus 4 yet. So here I have negative 142 minus 4, so I have 142 bad guys and another 4 bad guys since they're both negative, so that brings me to negative 146. Okay, again, you can use your calculator for some of these calculations. You just have to make sure that you're showing me the step. Okay, at this point, I would like you to try these two on your own. Please pause the video and work them out, and when you're ready to check your answers, we can start the video up again. Okay, number 1 has parentheses kind of in the middle of the problem. We've got this 7 minus 10. So I want to rewrite my 4 plus negative 2. And 7 minus 10, 7 good guys, 10 bad guys. That means I'm going to have 3 bad guys left. And I don't want to forget that that's squared. And then I have a minus and a negative 3 at the end of that problem. So I've done my parentheses. Now I'm going to look for exponents. I see an exponent right here kind of in the middle again. I have a negative 3 that's being squared. So I'm going to write down my 4 plus negative 2. And my negative 3 squared, that's multiplied. There's no sign between the negative 2 and that parentheses, so we're multiplying. Negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3. If you type it in your calculator, make sure you use parentheses. And you should get a positive 9. And then I'm going to write the rest of my problem out. So we've done parentheses. We've done the exponent. Now we're in the third step, which is multiply and divide from left to right. Well, it looks like we only have one multiplication problem. If I draw my triangle, excuse me, I'm going to write down my 4 and my plus sign. Then I have a negative 2 times a positive 9. Well, a negative times a positive is going to give us a negative, and 2 times 9 is 18. And again, I'm going to finish this by writing out the rest of the problem. So now we're at our very last step where we're adding and subtracting from left to right. I see I have a minus and a negative, so I'm going to change that to add the opposite, or plus a positive. And it looks like I have 4 positives, 18 negatives, and 3 positives. If I put my positives together, I have 4 good guys and 3 more good guys. That's 7 good guys. And then I have that one set right here of bad guys, which is a negative 18. So if I have 7 good guys and 18 bad guys, when the good guys and bad guys cancel each other out, that's going to leave me with a final answer of negative 11, or 11 bad guys. Okay? Hopefully we all did okay on that problem. Now keep in mind, you might make a little mistake in one spot that's going to make your answer seem way off. Please make sure you're not erasing your whole problem before you have someone look at it, whether it's myself, whether it's someone in your group, someone who sits next to you. Please make sure you have someone check it over before you erase the whole thing, because there might be just one little thing that needs to be fixed rather than erasing everything. Okay? All right, second example. This one has 2 sets of parentheses where we can actually calculate something. We have this negative 8 minus 4, and we have this 3 minus 9. Negative 8 minus 4 means I have 8 bad guys and 4 more bad guys, which means I have 12 bad guys, or a negative 12. Divided by 3 minus 5, I'm going to rewrite again. Now this minus 5, or negative 5, is multiplied to my answer that's in the parentheses. So I'm going to multiply that negative 5 by my answer to 3 minus 9. 3 good guys, 9 bad guys. We're going to be left with 6 bad guys, or a negative 6. That is still squared with a minus 6 at the end. So we've worked out our 2 sets of parentheses. Now we're going to look for an exponent, which I see on the negative 6 right here. So I'm going to write out my negative 12 divided by 3 minus 5. And now this negative 5 is still multiplied to the negative 6 that's being squared. So we're still multiplying. Negative 6 squared means negative 6 times negative 6, which is going to be a positive